The recorded message played on a loop, the strange sounds echoing through the abandoned station's corridors. Vex instructed her research team to document everything while she examined the central command area more closely. The station's architecture was peculiar, designed for beings of smaller stature than most galactic species, with interfaces that suggested fewer appendages but greater manual dexterity. Ambassador Vex, "We found something remarkable," called her junior analyst, Zenith. The young luminary's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with excitement as Tella approached. Zenith gestured toward a preservation chamber containing what appeared to be food items. These containers hold organic matter that should have decomposed centuries ago, yet they remain perfectly preserved. Tella examined the containers, each sealed with remarkably simple yet effective technology. "The preservation method is ingenious," she observed. "Rather than using quantum stasis fields, they've created a perfect vacuum with minimal technology." As they explored further, the team discovered personal quarters containing artifacts of daily life. Images displayed on thin sheets showed bipedal creatures standing together, their faces arranged in what xenobiologists had long theorized might be expressions of emotional bonding. "The creatures match every description from the myths," whispered Zenith. "Bipedal with bilateral symmetry, external sensory organs, and thin coverings of varied colors." Tella touched one of the images, her crystalline appendage reflecting light across the faded surface. "These cannot be humans," she stated firmly. "The myths describe them accomplishing impossible feats, surviving in radiation zones, healing from critical injuries, and operating without rest for extended periods." The team's medical specialist, Dr. Orban, interrupted with unusual urgency. "Ambassador, I've analyzed biological residue from what appears to be their medical facility. The cellular structure is unlike anything in our databases." He displayed his findings on a portable hologram. "These cells contain mechanisms that can repair genetic damage, fight microscopic invaders, and adapt to environmental toxins simultaneously. If the myths are accurate about their bipedal appearance, and these cells belong to them, that would mean humans were real." Tella completed his thought, her voice carrying an unusual tremor. Before she could process this revelation, the station's systems surged with new activity. Dormant terminals illuminated throughout the command center, and the incomprehensible audio message ceased. Instead, a visual display activated, showing a bipedal figure that perfectly matched the mythical descriptions. The figure spoke, and to everyone's shock, the station's systems began translating. Final log entry: Dr. Eleanor Chen, Research Station Pathfinder. If you're receiving this message, our long-range sensors detected your presence. We established this station as a bridge between Earth and the galactic community, but our attempts at contact have gone unanswered. We've decided to return home and reassess our approach to first contact. For any sentient species discovering this message, humanity extends peaceful greetings from Earth. We look forward to the day our civilizations meet as equals among the stars. The timestamp on the message corresponded to over 200 cycles ago, yet the technology required for such long-range sensors didn't officially exist until barely 50 cycles passed. Vex stared at the frozen image of Dr. Chen, her crystalline form reflecting fractured light across the command center. The implications were staggering. If humans were real, and they possessed such technology centuries ago, where were they now? And why had they remained hidden? "Prepare my personal vessel," she instructed Zenith. "This discovery remains classified at the highest level. The Council must not know until we verify exactly what we're dealing with." As they departed the station, none of them noticed the small dormant tracking beacon that activated silently in their wake. Captain Jackson Chen moved through Tella and Moro's ship with confident efficiency, examining their damaged navigation systems with practiced eyes. His movements were fluid yet precise, betraying years of experience with diverse technologies. "Your gravimetric alignment is completely shot," he observed, tapping at a control panel. "These older crystalline models always fail in dense asteroid fields. The emissions from your hull interfere with the sensors." Tella's crystalline form shimmered with indignation. This vessel represents the pinnacle of Dominion engineering. It should not have malfunctioned. Chen laughed, a sound that seemed to convey both amusement and empathy simultaneously. Even the best designs have blind spots. That's why I carry parts for a dozen different species ships. Never know who you'll meet out here. Moro, whose gelatinous form quivered with barely contained excitement, oozed closer to examine Chen. May I scan you for scientific verification? Chen shrugged. Sure, but buy me dinner first. When met with confused silence, he smiled. That's a joke. Scan away, but I promise I'm not an elaborate hologram. As Moro conducted his scans, Tella observed the human carefully. Everything about him contradicted established biological principles. His skeletal structure appeared fragile compared to most spacefaring species, yet he moved with surprising strength. His skin offered minimal protection from environmental hazards, yet he had boarded their vessel without the extensive protective gear most species required. Your compound eyes suggest vision across multiple spectrums, Chen noted, looking at Moro. Fascinating adaptation. Much better than our simple binocular vision. You recognize xenobiological traits? Tella asked, surprised by his knowledge. I majored in comparative xenobiology at the academy before switching to trade navigation. Chen replied casually, as he replaced a damaged component in their navigation system. Human education tends to be eclectic. Moro's scanning device chirped with results. Extraordinary. Your cellular structure contains natural repair mechanisms far beyond anything in our database. Your immune response alone could revolutionize medical science across the galaxy. Chen finished the repairs and wiped his hands on his clothing. Nothing special about me. All humans have similar biology. It's just how we evolved. He glanced at their still shocked expressions. Look, I understand this is a lot to process. Finding out we're real after believing we're myths must be disorienting. The navigation console chimed as systems came back online. Chen checked the readouts and nodded with satisfaction. You're good to go. Though honestly, I wouldn't recommend continuing your current trajectory. That asteroid field gets worse another 50 kiloparsecs in. We cannot simply abandon our investigation, Tella insisted. The council must be informed about humans. Chen interrupted, his expression growing serious. I'd like to offer an alternative suggestion. Instead of filing a report based on limited information, why not learn more first? My trading post isn't far. You could meet other humans, understand why we've maintained our low profile. Tella's crystalline structure vibrated as she processed this proposal. Council protocol demanded immediate reporting of first contact scenarios. Yet something about Chen's directness resonated with her scientific curiosity. I suppose first-hand observation would provide more comprehensive data, she rationalized. Excellent. Chen's face arranged itself into what they would later learn was a genuine smile. Follow my vessel's beacon. And fair warning, the first meeting with a new species usually involves something humans call a celebration. Hope you both can handle a little excitement. As they followed Chen's ship toward an unremarkable asteroid cluster, Tella transmitted a coded message to her secure archives, detailing their encounter and planned deviation from their original mission. Protocol satisfied, she allowed herself to experience an unfamiliar sensation. Anticipation. Director Amara Okafor led Tella and Moro through the bustling corridors of Outpost Artemis. The station's interior defied its unremarkable exterior, revealing a thriving community housed within the hollowed asteroid. Humans of various skin tones, heights, and body types mingled with a dozen alien species, all engaged in commerce, conversation, and cultural exchange. This outpost has existed for 43 years, Okafor explained, her dark eyes reflecting the ambient lighting. It's one of 17 similar hubs we've established throughout various sectors. We operate under different trade identities, with most non-humans believing we're a coalition of minor species called the Turan Cooperative. Tella observed a human merchant haggling with a Vordaxian trader. The Vordaxian's staccato speech patterns and aggressive posturing would intimidate most species, yet the human matched the alien's intensity without hesitation, even adopting similar physical mannerisms. Your species demonstrates remarkable social adaptability, Tella noted. That human is perfectly mirroring Vordaxian negotiation rituals. Okafor nodded. Sarah spent 3 years living among Vordaxians, learning their customs. We have specialists for every major galactic culture. Our adaptability has allowed us to integrate into the galactic economy without revealing our true nature. They entered a circular chamber where several humans worked at various consoles. A 3-dimensional projection of the galaxy hovered in the center, with thousands of tiny lights marking specific locations. Our observation network, Okafor said with evident pride. Each light represents either a human outpost, observation satellite, or embedded agent. We monitor communications, trade routes, political developments, and scientific advancements across known space. Moro's gelatinous form rippled with excitement. The resource commitment required for such comprehensive surveillance must be enormous. It's our greatest advantage, Okafor responded. Knowledge. While the galaxy tells stories about us, we've been studying every aspect of galactic civilization. We know your strengths, your vulnerabilities, your conflicts, and your potential. The director's tone caused a vibration of concern through Tella's crystalline structure. That sounds almost predatory. Okafor laughed softly. I understand your concern. If our positions were reversed, I might draw similar conclusions. She gestured toward another section of the projection, where several worlds glowed with a distinct blue light. These are worlds we've helped during natural disasters or conflicts, always working through intermediaries. We've prevented 37 species extinctions, mediated 14 interstellar conflicts, and provided technological assistance to developing worlds over 200 times. She turned to face Tella directly. We don't maintain our secrecy out of hostile intent, Ambassador Vex. We do it because premature contact between civilizations with power imbalances historically leads to subjugation of the less advanced culture. Yet your technology seems comparable to Council standards, Moro observed, gesturing toward a nearby console displaying equations beyond his comprehension. In some areas, we're ahead. In others, behind, Okafor acknowledged. Our development followed a different path. Council species specialize, mastering one field before advancing to another. Humans develop technologies in parallel, creating unusual combinations and applications. A young human approached with urgency, handing Okafor a data tablet. Her expression changed as she read the information. What is it? Asked Captain Chen, who had been quietly observing until now. A hyperdense energy vortex is formed near Junction Epsilon. Okafor replied, her voice tense. The Council has declared a Level 1 emergency and begun evacuation protocols. Casualties? Chen asked. Projected at 70% of the sector's population. The Council estimates they can only evacuate 3 of the 12 affected worlds. Tella's form dimmed with horror. 9 worlds lost. That's over 15 billion lives across multiple species. Okafor's expression hardened with determination. Not if we have anything to say about it. The control room transformed into a hive of coordinated activity. Humans from various specialties gathered around holographic displays showing the expanding vortex. Dr. Elena Patel, a woman with silver-streaked dark hair and intense eyes, took command of the scientific team. The vortex exhibits quantum instability at its core, she explained, manipulating the projection to highlight energy patterns. It's feeding on standard matter and converting it to exotic particles, which accelerates its expansion. The Council's models predict total consumption of the junction and surrounding systems within 72 hours. Tella observed the humans' response with fascination. Unlike Council emergency sessions, where species representatives would debate protocols and acceptable loss thresholds, the humans immediately focused on intervention possibilities. What if we introduced inverse tachyon particles at these convergence points? suggested a young human, pointing to 3 locations around the vortex perimeter. Not enough stability, countered another. But we could establish a resonance field to disrupt the quantum fluctuations at the core. Captain Chen studied the projection with narrowed eyes. Either approach would require placing equipment directly in the vortex path. The radiation alone would fry any remote systems. Manual calibration might work, Dr. Paddle said, but we'd need access to Junction Epsilon's primary control hub. Director Okafor's expression remained calm despite the escalating crisis, which means revealing ourselves to the Council. A heavy silence fell over the room. Tella realized she was witnessing a pivotal moment in human history, their decision to emerge from the shadows they had maintained for generations. There's another option, Morrow suggested tentatively. We could provide Ambassador Vex with your research and technology. She could present it to the Council as a theoretical solution developed by crystalline scientists. Tella's crystalline structure vibrated with discomfort. That would be deception. And it wouldn't work, Dr. Patil added. Your Council would spend precious hours debating theoretical applications while billions die. We need direct access to implement the solution personally. Director Okafor surveyed the room, making eye contact with each human present. No words were exchanged, yet Tella sensed some form of communication occurring, an unspoken consensus building. Prepare the fleet, Okafor finally announced. All vessels with appropriate shielding and personnel with radiation training. We'll need every qualified physicist, engineer, and pilot. The room erupted into motion as humans began executing tasks with practiced efficiency. Tella marveled at their coordination. Different teams working on separate aspects of a complex problem without needing constant direction. You've prepared for this, Tella realized aloud. You've been anticipating a moment when hiding would no longer be possible. We've run simulations for various first contact scenarios, Okafor confirmed. Though this particular circumstance wasn't high on our probability list. A young human technician approached with a secure communication device. Ambassador Vex, we've prepared this for you. It will allow you to contact us through Council communication systems without detection. You'll need it when we arrive at Junction Epsilon. Tella accepted the device, its weight suddenly feeling significant beyond its physical mass. The Council will resist. They'll see unidentified vessels as a threat, especially during a crisis. That's where you come in, Captain Chen said with a slight smile. They trust you. We need you to help them understand we're not mythical monsters. We're real people trying to help. Okafor's expression grew solemn. Ambassador, I won't pretend this won't be chaotic. Generations of myth about humans have painted us as dangerous. When we arrive with technology that contradicts established science, the fear could trigger defensive responses. Tella considered the magnitude of what was unfolding. You're risking everything. Your secrecy, your safety, for worlds that don't even know you exist. Dr. Patil looked up from her calculations. That's what humans do, Ambassador. We help because we can, not because we're recognized for it. As emergency klaxons sounded throughout the station, Tella made her decision. She would stand with these humans, these creatures of myth now made real. As they attempted the impossible, the 50 unmarked human vessels entered Junction Epsilon space in perfect formation. Their designs varied. Some appeared cobbled together from different technological traditions, while others displayed sleek, unfamiliar aesthetics. What united them was efficiency of movement and purposeful coordination. Galactic Defense Force vessels immediately moved to intercept, weapons systems activating. Emergency channels filled with alarmed communications. Unidentified fleet, this is Junction Control. You have entered a restricted emergency zone. State your intentions immediately or face defensive action. Inside the Junction's command center, Tella Vex watched Council representatives from 12 species react with growing panic. The Kelvin delegate, Admiral Zorth, was already ordering defensive formations. We must assume hostile intent during an active crisis, the Admiral insisted. These could be scavengers hoping to raid evacuating vessels. Tella stepped forward. Before you open fire, Admiral, I suggest hearing their response. The communications array activated, and Captain Chen's voice filled the command center. Junction Control, this is Captain Jackson Chen of the independent human vessel Lucky Star. We are here to offer assistance with the vortex situation. We have scientists and equipment that can stabilize the anomaly. Silence fell across the command center. The Arcturian chief counselor's tentacles twitched with confusion. Did he say human? Impossible, hissed the Vespidian representative. Humans are fictional creatures. Tella took advantage of their bewilderment. Counselors, I can confirm the existence of humans. I've recently made first contact with their species. Admiral Zorth's scales flushed with anger. You had first contact with an unknown species and failed to report it immediately. This is a serious breach of protocol, Ambassador. With respect, Admiral, the situation is complex, Tella replied. But right now, they're offering help we desperately need. Before further argument could erupt, Dr. Elena Patel's voice came through the communication system. Junction Control, this is Dr. Patel. We need immediate access to your primary stabilization grid. The vortex will reach critical expansion in approximately 14 hours. We have a working solution, but implementation requires direct interface with your systems. The Vespidian representative chittered with indignation. You expect us to grant unknown entities access to our most crucial infrastructure during a crisis, based on claims of being mythological creatures. Tella's crystalline form pulsed with determination. Counselors, I propose a compromise. I will personally escort representatives of this human delegation to meet with the Science Directorate. They can present their solution, and our scientists can evaluate its validity. Reluctant agreement followed, though Admiral Zorth insisted on a full security detail. 20 minutes later, Captain Chen and Dr. Patel entered the command center, flanked by armed guards. The room fell silent as council members stared at the bipedal figures, living embodiments of creatures from children's stories. Dr. Patel spoke first, her voice calm despite the tension. Thank you for meeting with us. I understand your caution, but time is critical. She activated a portable display showing detailed schematics of the vortex. The anomaly exhibits a quantum signature consistent with a theoretical phenomenon our scientists have successfully counteracted before, though at a much smaller scale. Vorex, the chief science officer, studied the data with growing interest. These energy patterns suggest resonance capabilities beyond our current models. The multi-brained entity turned all four eye stalks toward Dr. Patel. Your calculations utilize principles that contradict established quantum theory. Not contradict, Dr. Patel corrected politely. Expand upon. Your models assume certain universal constants that aren't actually constant under extreme conditions. Discussions between human and council scientists intensified, filled with technical terminology. Tella observed with fascination as initial skepticism gave way to reluctant acknowledgement of the human's expertise. Meanwhile, in distant sectors of Junction Epsilon, the vortex consumed another monitoring station. Security feeds showed its crew desperately attempting evacuation before their images dissolved into static. The Junction's primary control chamber hummed with activity as human and alien scientists worked side by side, implementing Dr. Patel's radical plan. Though initially resistant, the council technicians now followed human directions with urgent precision as status displays showed the vortex's accelerating expansion. Primary dampening field established, called out a human engineer. Resonance at 73% and holding. Dr. Patel studied the energy readings with growing concern. Not enough. The vortex is adapting too quickly. She turned to Vorex. We need to push beyond the safety parameters of your stabilization grid. The alien scientist's eye stalks quivered with alarm. Impossible. The system will catastrophically fail if pushed beyond 85% capacity. It's already failing, Dr. Rahman pointed out, gesturing toward the displays showing evacuating vessels struggling to outpace the vortex's reach. We need to invert our approach completely. On the main view screen, the swirling energy mass pulsed with hypnotic beauty that belied its destructive power. Sections of the junction's outer rings were already being torn apart, molecular bonds shredding as matter converted to exotic particles. Captain Chen studied the tactical display. Whatever we're going to do, it needs to happen now. We've lost communication with evacuation vessels in sectors 7 through 12. Dr. Rahman pulled up complex equations on his console. The dampening approach isn't working because we're fighting the vortex's natural momentum. Instead, we should accelerate its cycle. His fingers moved rapidly across the interface. If we redirect power from containment to amplification, we could push it past its sustainable threshold. You want to make it stronger. Admiral Zorth hissed incredulously. That's not a solution. It's suicide. Dr. Patel reviewed Rahman's calculations and nodded with growing excitement. It's counterintuitive but mathematically sound. Energy systems seek equilibrium. By pushing this vortex beyond its sustainable pattern, we force collapse rather than continued expansion. Vorex processed the proposal, all 4 brains working in parallel. Your approach violates 17 principles of established physics. Theory sometimes lags behind reality, Dr. Rahman replied with a slight smile. The universe doesn't always follow our equations. After tense debate, the Science Directorate reluctantly approved the modified plan. But implementation required manual adjustments to junction nodes within the danger zone, areas already experiencing radiation levels lethal to most species. The automated systems can't handle the precision required, Dr. Rahman explained, already donning specialized protective gear. Someone needs to make the adjustments physically. The radiation will kill anyone who enters that sector, Vorex stated flatly. Not immediately, Dr. Rahman countered. Our cellular structure can withstand short exposures. With protective gear, I should have enough time. Before anyone could respond, 3 other humans stepped forward, offering to share the risk by taking sequential shifts. Their willingness to face potentially fatal radiation shocked the watching council representatives. Tella approached Dr. Rahman as he completed his preparations. Why would you risk your life for strangers who until today thought your kind was mythical? He adjusted his radiation shield, expression serene despite the danger ahead. My grandparents were refugees fleeing environmental collapse on Earth. They were saved by strangers who had nothing to gain by helping them. He checked his equipment one final time. Some debts can only be repaid forward. As the security doors sealed behind him, Dr. Rahman entered the pulsing glow of the affected sector. The monitoring system displayed his vital signs alongside radiation readings that steadily climbed toward lethal levels, yet his movements remained precise, methodically adjusting each node according to the modified plan. First recalibration complete, his voice reported over the communication system, steady despite the strain evident in his breathing. Moving to second junction point now. On the view screens, the vortex briefly flared with increased intensity as the first adjustments took effect. Dr. Rahman's vital signs fluctuated alarmingly as he completed the final calibration. Medical monitors shrieked warnings that the Council's medical officers couldn't silence. They weren't programmed to recognize human physiology. The radiation levels had exceeded what any known species could survive, yet Rahman continued adjusting each node with precision. Final calibration complete, he gasped, voice strained. Initiating sequence now. The command center view screens showed the vortex pulsing with escalating intensity. Its swirling mass expanded dramatically, consuming another section of the junction as council representatives watched in horror. It's getting worse. Admiral Zorth snarled. This human solution is destroying us faster. Dr. Patel remained focused on her readings. Wait for it. The system needs to reach critical threshold. The vortex expansion accelerated, its luminosity increasing to painful brightness. Evacuation alerts sounded throughout remaining junction sections as structural integrity warnings flashed across multiple displays. Then, at the moment when failure seemed inevitable, the vortex's rotation pattern changed. Its swirling motion stuttered, pulsed once with blinding intensity, and suddenly collapsed inward. The massive energy signature imploded, releasing a shock wave of harmless particles that dissipated into space. Where the deadly vortex had raged, only a scatter of exotic particles remained, already breaking down into standard matter. Emergency teams rushed to retrieve Dr. Raman, finding him barely conscious but still methodically documenting readings from his position. In the command center, stunned silence gave way to cautious celebration. Vorex's analysis confirmed what seemed impossible. The vortex had completely collapsed, leaving no trace of its destructive potential. "The junction is saved," the science officer announced, all 4 eye stalks oriented toward the human scientists. 12 worlds and billions of lives preserved through a solution that violates fundamental principles of established physics. Captain Chen helped Raman's medical team navigate junction corridors toward the treatment center. "How is he?" Chen asked the human physician. "Severe radiation exposure, but his cellular regeneration is already responding to treatment," she replied. "He'll recover, though not without lasting effects." News of the crisis resolution spread rapidly throughout remaining junction sectors. Council communication channels overloaded as reports confirmed the vortex's disappearance. With immediate danger averted, attention turned quickly to the revelation that had shaken galactic understanding. Humans were real. Director Okafor arrived with additional vessels, establishing secure communications with junction control. When she requested permission to address the council directly, the chamber filled with representatives eager to witness the historic moment. Okafor stood before the assembled council, her posture conveying dignified confidence. "Distinguished representatives, I am Director Amara Okafor of Earth's Diplomatic Corps. After centuries of observation and preparation, humanity formally requests recognition from the Galactic Council." The Arcturian chief counselor's translator struggled to convey appropriate formality. "Your existence represents a significant paradigm shift in our understanding. Humans have long been considered allegorical constructs rather than biological entities. We are aware of our mythological status," Okafor replied with a slight smile. "We've monitored your communications for generations. The stories you tell about us are quite colorful, if somewhat exaggerated." This casual admission of long-term surveillance sent ripples of concern through the chamber. The Vespidian representative's wings vibrated with agitation. "You've been watching us, intercepting communications. These actions border on espionage." Okafor remained unflustered. "We preferred to understand the galactic community before making formal contact. Our history taught us that first interactions between civilizations with significant power imbalances rarely benefit the less advanced society." "Less advanced?" Admiral Zorth's scales flushed deep crimson. "Your technology appears crude compared to Council standards." "In some areas, perhaps," Okafor acknowledged. "In others, we've developed along different paths. Our scientific approach emphasizes practical application over theoretical purity." Today's resolution demonstrated the value of that perspective. Televex's personal transport approached Earth's orbital station with measured caution. As the first non-human diplomat officially invited to humanity's homeworld, she felt the weight of historical significance. Her escort, a human cultural liaison named Maya Chen, pointed toward the blue-green planet filling the view screen. "There it is, Earth. Not what you expected from all those stories, is it?" Tella's crystalline structure refracted light as she processed the view. "It appears remarkably ordinary. The myths described a death world of extreme environments and constant disasters." Maya laughed softly. "Parts of it certainly can be challenging, but we've learned to thrive in diverse conditions. That adaptability shaped everything about us." The orbital station's docking procedures completed with efficient precision. As they disembarked, Tella observed humans of all varieties moving purposefully through the terminal. Some nodded respectfully in her direction, her crystalline form distinctive even among the station's diverse visitors. "Your species shows remarkable cohesion, despite significant physical variation," Tella noted. "Council species typically develop much narrower phenotypic expressions." "Our diversity is our strength," Maya replied. Different perspectives lead to creative solutions. It's not always harmonious. Our history includes terrible conflicts based on trivial differences, but we've learned those lessons. Their shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, allowing Tela to observe sprawling cities alongside vast preserved wilderness areas. Maya guided her through a carefully planned itinerary. Educational institutions where young humans engaged in vigorous debate with their instructors, medical facilities where researchers worked on cellular regeneration techniques, and public spaces where humans participated in seemingly purposeless physical activities. They exert themselves without practical benefit. Tela asked, watching humans run along a designated path through a park. We call it exercise or sports. It maintains physical health and provides psychological benefits, Maya explained. The exertion triggers chemical responses that create feelings of well-being. You intentionally stress your bodies to feel better. Exactly. Paradoxical, isn't it? But that's characteristic of our species. Their final destination was a diplomatic reception hosted by Earth's Unify Council. Representatives from dozens of human nations gathered alongside visiting dignitaries from newly established alien embassies. The atmosphere buzzed with multilingual conversations as species that had only recently learned of each other's existence began forging connections. Director Okafor approached, accompanied by Dr. Raman, now recovered though moving with careful deliberation. Ambassador Vex, your report to the Galactic Council was extraordinarily fair-minded. Many expected you to portray us as a potential threat. I reported what I observed, Tela replied simply. Your species saved billions without expectation of recognition or reward. That speaks more truthfully than any myth. Raman smiled wryly. Some council species still seem uncomfortable with our existence. The Vespidian delegation calls us unpredictable variables in their reports. Your methods challenge established principles, Tela acknowledged. Change rarely comes without resistance. As the reception continued, Tela observed a human child approaching a Mavolian diplomat with curious fascination rather than fear, despite the alien's intimidating appearance. The Mavolian, initially startled, responded with careful gentleness to the child's questions. Later, preparing her final assessment for the council, Tela struggled to capture the essence of humanity in diplomatic language. After multiple revisions, she wrote, "Humanity defies conventional classification. Their biological adaptability is mirrored in their cognitive flexibility. They embrace contradiction, finding strength